Okay, my friends, good morning. Welcome to the special episode of Kevin at 7. It is December 29th. We've got 2 days left after today in 2022, and then 2023 is here. That's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about where you're going in 2023, but I want to talk about this question. Where did you come from? Where did you come from? Where are you from? And what I'm talking about is our roots, our origins, our beginnings, because this last week I made a road trip. To Texas, back to my roots. And I went back to see family. I went back to see my daughters, my grandsons, had my fifth grandson. My fifth grandson was born 2 weeks ago, on December 15th. So yeah, 2 weeks ago today. No, it's not right. I don't remember. It was less than 2 weeks ago because it was born on Thursday. So today is Wednesday. What is today? Oh, it is. That's right. I've been traveling. This is Thursday. 2 weeks ago today, my grandson was born. This is my fifth great grandson. His name's Elliot. Super cute. I got to go and hold him and love on him and play with his brother Eli and my other three grandsons, and got to go see all of them. But in this whole trip, I got to go back and drive through several of my towns that I lived in growing up. So specifically, I got to go to Anson. Well, Abilene, where I lived for a little bit, but I don't really consider Abilene a hometown. That's where I went to college and all that. But Anson, Texas, Spur, Texas, and Acuff, Texas. So Spur and Acuff are both up in the South Plains, up by Lubbock. And then Anson is down in West Texas, down by Abilene. Those are the towns I grew up in. So I lived in Anson from third grade, from the beginning of third grade through ninth grade. Now, that was only 7 years, but it doesn't sound like that long, but that was the longest I lived anywhere. I never lived anywhere else more than 2 years. So I was born in Texline, Texas, lived there for less than 2 years. Then we lived in Stratford for less than 2 years, then in Acuff for less than 2 years, and then in Moran. We lived in Moran for maybe a little over 2 years, but we also were living in Abilene during the week and then coming back to Moran on the weekends. So I lived in Abilene for a couple of years, and then we moved to Anson. And we moved to Anson at the beginning of my third grade year and stayed there through my freshman year in high school. And then we moved to Spur for 2 years, and then we moved to Dalhart for my senior year in high school, and then I went to college, and my parents stayed in Dalhart for several years, but that was my hometown. So I didn't really have a hometown that I grew up in the whole time. So it was kind of like Anson and Spur were probably the two most formative for me because that was where I was from third grade through 11th grade. So those are my two big things, and I got to go through both of them. I got to go through Acuff, through Spur, and I got to go through Anson. And so I'm going to tell you about that, my experiences and what lessons I took from this. But here's my question for you guys. Good morning, everybody. I want you to type in the chat where you're from right now. That tells me, that way I get to know you. And then I want you to tell me where you came from. Okay, where did you come from? So if you're watching this live or if you're watching this as a replay, where did you come from? And so you might put hometown and then put your hometown so I know that's where you came from, not where you are right now. Now, some of you may be there. I met my youngest daughter, Brooklyn. I met her boyfriend, Bryce. And he was born and raised in Lubbock, and he's still in Lubbock. And he's in his mid-20s now. And so it's like, wow, I can't imagine being born and raised in one town and staying there the whole time. And yet through history, that's the way most people were. Most people, they were born in a town, they lived in the town, they died in that same area. If you go back through the years of history, very few people moved around the way we move around today. And today we move everywhere, right? So type in the chat, comments. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. As you come on, give this video a thumbs up. And I'm going to talk about why it matters where you came from. So type in the comments, where is your hometown? Where are you from? So I'm going to say mine was Anson. And then a secondary one would be Spur. Now here's what I discovered as I drove back through them. Those towns are dying. I grew up in small West Texas, rural farm country towns, and they're dying. I drove by the farm where I lived for 6 years while we lived in Anson. And my dad bought that land for, I think, $250 an acre. He bought 43 acres. I think it was $250 an acre. It may have been $100 an acre. So $100 an acre or $250 an acre. And of that 43 acres, they've now subdivided it, and 10 acres of it is for sale right now for $98,000. So that's $10,000 an acre. My dad gave $100 or $250 an acre. That's what he gave for it. So my hometown was Anson. Well, Anson was 2,500 people, a population of about 2,500 people when I lived there. Now the population is just barely over 2,000. So that was a long time ago. That was 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, but the town is dying. And then I went to Spur. So I drove, I was in Abilene, and I drove up through Anson, and then drove up to Spur, up in the South Plains, about 60 miles, 70 miles from Lubbock. And I got to Spur, and I went by the old high school. I went by the old football stadium and down to the practice fields where I used to get bullied by Rawl. That was my high school nemesis was Rawl Lara. He used to punch me every day in the locker room. And I drove down and I went to the field house by Spur Bulldog Stadium, where that field house was. And this is where Rawl used to punch me and pick on me. A lot of memories, a lot of intense memories of how I used to be and all that. And I'm like, I'm kind of glad those old memories are dying, but the town went from 1,600 people when I was living there. 1,600 people, the population has now been cut in half. And I'm telling you, I drive through the town, it's just like a ghost town. And I mean, the number of boarded up houses and businesses, there's a convenience store. I'm like, I don't even know if there's a grocery store in the town anymore. It's like crazy. Like nothing around there. I was like, I didn't see anything. It was dead. Couldn't believe how dead this town was. And I'm like, wow. The towns I grew up in are dying. And I know from Facebook, I still have friends in those towns that still live in those towns. And I'm like, how could you still live here? Imagine if you grew up, and I went by my old house, by the way, in Spur. Of course, the house in Anson where I grew up was a mobile home. So it's gone. The land is there, but the mobile home was gone. My parents gave it away. They gave away the mobile home when we moved, okay, just to give you an idea of what I grew up in. So it's gone. There's a new house there on the land. It's actually 2 or 3 houses on the 43 acres, but on the home place where we had our trailer, there's a new house there, not new, but it's a house. But the house that I lived in for 2 years in Spur is still there. It's a different color now. They painted it, but it's just run down. It's like, the house next to it, it looks vacant, abandoned. And I'm like, how could anybody let their child grow up being exposed to this, just decay and everything run down? And I'm like, I cannot imagine staying in a town like that where everything looks like it's dying. Because your association and everything affects you is so dramatic. So is nobody gonna post where you're from? Where's your hometown? Come on, type it in the chat. Type it in the chat. If you're here, there's 9 of you on right now. If you're watching this as a replay, type in the chat, where are you from? Where's your hometown? Are you ashamed of it? So type it in the chat. Where are you from? Where's your hometown? Mine was Anson. Spur. Spur is the one that was like, half the people are gone. It's crazy. It's like the town's dying on the vine. So here's what I take from all this. Some people are still there that I knew growing up. I mean, this is 45, 50 years ago. Some people still live in those towns, those same kids that I was friends with that grew up in these little towns. They're still there. I'm like, how could you, what are your kids gonna believe about life if they grew up in a dying town? So here's 5, I'm gonna give you 5 lessons that I took from growing up there, but I'm gonna transfer where you came from as a kid, where you grew up, but also where you came from in 2022. Because here's the final piece of this that I'm gonna just go ahead and give you right now. And that is just like where you came from. What you did in 2022, what you did this year doesn't limit what's possible for you in 2023. It doesn't limit it, okay? I mean, this is like a time of scarcity. For the economy is in turmoil right now. The housing market is in turmoil right now. But here's what I'm going to promise you: that you can bring abundance into your life in a time of scarcity. In a time of scarcity, you can bring abundance into your life. I think this is my theme for 2023: abundance in a time of scarcity. that agents are walking out, they're dying on the vine, their businesses are laying like corpses on the battlefield. And in a time of scarcity, a time of fear, and a time of panic, while tens of thousands of realtors are quitting every month, while businesses are going out of business, while layoffs are happening left and right, you can create abundance in your life in a time of scarcity. So here's my takeaways from where I came from. So here's where I came from. Number one, your past, your roots, where you came from, it can either drown you or it can drive you. It can drown you or it can drive you. I wanted to get out of my town. Okay, after graduation night, I was in Spur, Texas, the end of my junior year. I knew we probably weren't going to be there the next year because my dad was looking and applying at other places because he wanted to become a superintendent, and he was a principal and he wanted to become a superintendent. So he was applying. So I was pretty sure my senior year we were moving, which is not really exciting when you're an athlete and you're playing sports and you're like, it was all district and I wanted to be basketball. I wanted to play on the basketball team, and so I didn't want to move, but it was going to happen. So I left town graduation night and drove. By the way, you can see this is my puppy. I guess he's taking a nap. So I left town that night. Here's the deal. Where you grew up, it can either drown you or it can drive you. It can drown you, meaning the beliefs that you had based on where you grew up, it can hold you back or it can drive you forward. I look back as I go back and I'm like, I can't believe I was there. I would never want to live there. I'm a country boy, but I would never want to live back there. And it drives me to be like, I will never be like the people that are still stuck there. Cannot happen. Number two, it's not where you start. It's where you go. It's not where you start, it's where you go that matters. Where you start doesn't matter. You can start anywhere, okay? You didn't get to choose your beginning. I didn't get to choose where I came from. I didn't get to choose where I was born. I didn't get to choose where we lived or where we grew up. My parents made the choices that we moved. I went with them. I didn't get to choose all that, but I get to choose today. And so you're watching this today. You're an adult. You now have control. Where you came from, like, well, yeah, but if I'd grown up in a different place or a different time, or if I didn't have this, or if I'd had money, if my parents had money, you didn't get to choose that. But what do you get to choose? You get to choose today, and you get to choose where you go from today. Nobody is rich. Nobody is a great achiever today because of where they came from. Okay, unless they were the trust what they call it, trust child. They came in with, you inherited a fortune. Where you are does not determine where you have to go. Okay, and your past does not limit your future. Just doesn't. Your past does not limit your future. Most of the greatest achievers in any endeavor, in any field, in any industry, in life, in current times and in the past, almost all great achievers came from nothing. So if you came from nothing like me, yes, you got this. I came from nothing. We grew up in a mobile home. My parents my parents weren't broke, but we had little money. We didn't drive new cars. We drove one car for 10 years. And I can remember every single car that we had, and most of the cars that we had, even from the 1969. In fact, that car, 1969, my dad bought a new car. I don't know why. I don't know how. It did not, he added air conditioning. Air conditioning was an upgrade. He did not add, there were no power windows. We rolled the windows up, 1969. That was my car in high school. That was my high school car in the 1980s. I was driving a 1969 Rambler that had over 100,000 miles, which back in the 1970s and 80s, 100,000 miles on a car, man, it was breaking down all the time. But your past does not limit your future. Most great achievers, most wealthy people today started from humble beginnings. Never forget where you came from, but use it as fuel. Use it as fuel for your fire, okay? And here's the final piece, forget your excuses. Forget your alibi of like, well, if only I had this, if only I'd come from this. Because what we look at is our current circumstances, and we want to say, if I didn't have my current circumstances, I could be more successful. Well, if I was older, if I was younger, if I lived in a different town, if I was more outgoing, if I was more this, if I had this, if only this didn't happen, if I didn't have this problem. Well, that's just your starting point, my friends. Your starting point does not determine your destination. It just determines your starting point. Where you are right now, where you are today at the end of 2022 does not determine where you can go in 2023. Yeah, but it's just the starting point. So leave your buts behind you. You leave your if only behind you and go like, this is where I am. This is the truth. This is what I got right now. Where do I want to go? And you can use your current place as an excuse, or you can use your current place as a launching pad. Your current location, where you live, your current situation, your current finances, your whatever it is, your current job situation, your current relationship situation, whatever, your current health situation, whatever it is, it's just a starting point. Where you go from today forward is what matters. 2022 is going to be history in 3 days. In 3 days, 2022 is history. It's just where you're starting from. Where do you want to go in 2023? This, my friends, is up to you. This is the decision you got to make. Oh, by the way, I was going to tell you, for those of you that are real estate agents, you want to crush it in 2023, join me for Agent Mastery Live. Go to agentmasterylive.com or go to yesmasters.com and get your tickets. Okay, it's coming up. We actually start pre-training on Monday. We start the pre-training on Monday, January 2nd. Start the new year, 2023, right? You're going to get free coaching with me for the month, okay? All the way through January. So we start on January 2nd. You get free coaching with me that agents pay me thousands of dollars a month for the exact same coaching you're going to get. Okay, I'm going to be giving this to you plus 3 days of live training with me at Agent Mastery Live. So go to agentmasterylive.com, get your tickets, how to create abundance in a time of scarcity, how to win the victory, absolute victory in 2023. This is what it's going to be for you. And we're going to talk on everything from lead generation, lead conversion, to how to get listings and sales, where to find motivated sellers and buyers in today's market, what to say, how to say it, how to connect with them, how to connect with people that don't want to talk to you, how to handle objections in a way you've never handled them before. All of the things that have been stopping you, we're going to remove every obstacle, every barrier, everything that stopped you. That's what's going to be happening at Agent Mastery Live. Go to agentmasterylive.com. Get your early bird tickets right now. Guys, where you came from doesn't matter. It's where you're going that matters. So thanks for joining me today. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you like it. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel and type in the chat. If you're watching this, I want you to type in the chat, where is your hometown, where you come from? All right, guys, have a great day. Play to win and always expect yes.